Welcome to another episode of Plain Air, the best podcast to listen to in the pit of a hardcore show. We're your hosts,
AJ Dungo,
and
Deng.
our guest today is Chuy Hartman. He is a painter and an illustrator, most known for his on-location drawings and paintings of live bands. He's drawn over 3,000 performances. He currently has a 10-year retrospective of his amazing work on display at the Punk Rock Museum in Las Vegas, Nevada. He currently lives in Los Angeles, California.
So, as someone who sprained her ankle while just skipping around in her living room and ended up not being able to walk for 2 days, it's pretty safe to assume that I know absolutely nothing about skate culture or anything about navigating a live hardcore music show, much less trying to finish a drawing without getting punched in the face. So it was it was very, it was really cool to listen Chewy and actually AJ talk about like this whole scene that I have like no knowledge about at all.
It's good to have someone outside of it to give that perspective. But me, on the other hand, I was super geeked to chop it up with Chewy. I've always loved talking to him because his experiences as an artist and a musician are so unique and so special. And as an illustrator slash musician myself, I really connect to Chewy, and I've always looked up to him. Quite literally, he is a giant, and I am very small. Um, but yeah, his work always speaks to me, and we actually met at Art Center. Surprise, surprise. We had some classes together, and I remember he was always just deep into his sketchbook, quietly working away in the corner, always improving. And there were these student studios that I would visit sometimes after hours to see friends and actually work too. But he was always there every hour of the day or night. Like Chewy would be in there just drawing, and it's a true joy to see how far he's come. And Sally and I consider him a great friend and an even better artist, and we were lucky to have him in the PA studio.
So let's get to it. Here's our interview with the infamous Chuy Hartman.
I am super excited for this. Probably, I don't want to say more so than our other guests, but I'm really excited to talk to you because, number one, you're an amazing dude. I think you have a singular voice in the illustration world. Um, but I think your path and the niche that you've carved for yourself is really unconventional, and people need to hear about it, whether they be students or working professionals or whatever. You have like a very unique story that I think people need to hear. So thanks for being here. We appreciate it.
Dude, thank you for having me. I'm just stoked to talk to you guys about, you two are like two big illustration idols, so honored to talk to you guys.
Oh my God.
Nah, man.
Not at all. Nope.
Oh,
We're not
please.
taking that, but I appreciate it. All right, starting from here. Where are you from, and what was it like growing up from wherever you're at?
I grew up in the San Fernando Valley, here in Los Angeles, and my family had like a coffee shop, barbecue spot, since pretty much I was like 4 or 5 years old. And then also just selling Christmas trees pretty much all my life and pumpkins, seasonally. So like I
What?
really grew up, yeah, like
That's really
really
cool.
like involved in like Silmar, like Silmar community. And my mom, and just like having like the shop, it would be like a spot where there'd be karaoke nights and shows and just like a lot of like creative events, I guess, growing up, and yeah, so growing up in Silmar was also like a very famous skate school, like a skate high school, so skateboarding was like a big part of growing up in Silmar too, and then just the local music scene. there's like a lot of like history with like just like the valley and skateboarding in general, but you know, I remember growing up and seeing like all these like skate videos and just like seeing like my middle school, which was like Frost, and then like my high school and everything, like I don't know, it was just like part of the culture growing up, like for me.
Dude,
This
sick.
this is the first time I've ever heard of like a skateboarding school. Like I did like I'm so not part of that culture. Like I'm used to hearing like, oh, that's that school's known for football, or that school's known for their tennis team. But like I've never heard of a school that's like a skateboarding school. This is really
Oh,
cool.
it's been those schools have been featured in like so many videos, like just over the years, And Paul Rodriguez was like a big like I feel like in the valley there was like a lot of people who like if you did something the valley would celebrate you, like so like Denny Trejo like in acting or you know yeah just like a bunch of like other things and Paul Rodriguez was very like current growing up and like his whole career was like kind of like blowing up at least like from my opinion and like just I don't know like I feel like for my age I was really young with like when Tony Hawk came out like that game and like everything that happened afterwards, like it was just kind of part of like just normal school culture. There was like always like a big group of skaters and stuff, and then just finding out like watching like videos and then seeing those schools like be like in my neighborhood like was really cool, but yeah.
Did you identify with that? Like, were you a skater? Were you like, did your homie
Oh
skate?
yeah. I mean like probably like from yeah again like maybe first second grade, like and then just till I think I stopped skating like middle of high school. I think 10th grade. But like from elementary to then, like I was like all about it. And it was just like also like just a means of transportation, when you don't have a car.
Dang,
Like
dude,
just
I didn't know that. That's sick. We gotta skate,
yeah,
man.
yeah. Oh, it's been too long. It's a muscle memory that I think I lost.
Yeah.
I doubt it,
You
man.
should have
Give
been
yourself a
skating
day.
with yeah, you should have been skating
True.
with AJ at Art Center.
I know. I'm surprised we didn't push, man.
I think I did like a little bit with like Madar, but very, very little. And it was just more of like getting outside like the studio to take a break in the parking lot.
Yeah, yeah. How did you find yourself going to art school? From growing up in the valley and being around all that skate stuff. What was your path to that?
I mean, I grew up, part like one of like the early things I would draw was like stuff from video games, like a Kingdom Hearts cover or whatever, or Devil May Cry or Metal Gear or something.
Sick.
And then a lot of like Blind and World Industries characters. Like I remember like being young and like just making my own like little comics with like Flame Boy and Wet Willie. Like and just yeah, I mean that was like a big part of like the pool for me. And then just like my dad being like an old like Grateful Dead head, like just following them around from like their inception and stuff, like so I had like all these Hendrix posters and Doors posters and Grateful Dead posters like done by like artists like Rick Griffin and stuff, like just kind of like being in my periphery growing up. So I was always like interested like in drawing growing up, and then I came to learn about like my grandpa who passed before I was born, and he was like an OG Disney animator who did
Whoa.
like
Oh
Bambi
wow.
and like a bunch of like Hanna-Barbera stuff like Scooby-Doo and Flintstones, Jetsons and stuff. But like I didn't really know about that until like later on in life. But I always had like an inherent uh I don't know, like drawing was just came easy, I guess. I was always like the top drawer in the class or something, or like one of like three or something, like and kind of like spend my time avoiding classwork drawing or something. But yeah, like I did that like pretty active. I was drawing pretty actively until like until middle school, and then middle school like I started playing music, and that kind of took over, like as far as like a focus, and then yeah, I didn't really. do any drawing or anything like in high school at all. And then I had to like make up some credits, like and took drawing my senior year, and then I ended up like getting like a art honors degree or like graduation thing or whatever. And from there, I got that time in high school. Instead of drawing, it was music and filmmaking. And like I was like just
Whoa.
filmmaking was like something that like really like took over as far as like a focus like outside of like music, and kind of like another reason why I was like starting to step away from skateboarding too. It was just like I don't know, like music and filmmaking was like kind of like my biggest interest. And yeah, like I didn't really focus on drawing until like after high school, where like because I had like this big interest in film and I was like I could kind of draw. I decided to go to school for animation because I thought like putting the two together like that would make sense. But I ended up like going to like the Art Institute, which was like this corporate scam pretty much, where like I was
Yeah.
there for 2 years and then they were unaccredited. So then like yeah, like I ended up like finding out that I had to like start over pretty much with college,
Damn.
like and I still had like
Mhm.
this debt and stuff. So yeah, I mean like that was like a whole thing. Like I lived up in the Bay Area like studying animation at that time, and it was
No
kind of like
way.
my exploration, like I'm 18, I'm out of the house type of thing, like. And yeah, like you know, music was still very, very, very prevalent and kind of like the main thing where like my main social activity when I was like in the Bay Area, because it was just like it was like the same type of feeling, like going to see like my favorite bands, like yeah, it was like the same thing as being at home. But then some other friends from like back home, like they were like in this hardcore band, and like they got signed to like this label that was like kind of popping at the time, and they were like really active. And there was like this one show where they came up to like the Bay to come visit and also like go to that show. It was like this band Killing the Dream. It was like their last show at the Gilman, and they all stayed for like all my friends like stayed for like a weekend and stuff. And then when they got back, like they kind of like we kept on talking, and then they invited me to be in their band, and I was already kind of like feeling like that sketchiness of like that college that I was in. So like I decided to just move back and then just go to community college and start over, but like just mainly focus on the band. And I did that for like a while. Um, but yeah, like it was like school of music for like a long time. Like where it was just like I don't know, basic like community college courses, but I had to take drawing one again, which was like really annoying because I was already like I felt like I had like already developed a bit and much more than like drawing one in community college. But yeah, I just felt kind of stuck with it for a little bit, and I didn't really know where to go with school in general, but I just knew that I had to continue to go to school, otherwise I had to pay back my student loans. So like yeah, I was just kind of stuck there for a minute. But then a friend that I came across, she was like working at Epitaph Records, and then they offered me an internship. And then from there, learned the art director, went to Art Center, and then submitted a portfolio from there. And then, yeah, it was just, that's when I came across you guys.
Wow, dude, I had no idea you had
That's
such like a storied past before we even got to Art Center. That is awesome.
I feel like that calls for a whole nother conversation to talk about like just
Definitely.
colleges and youth and trying to figure out what's your path when you have so many interests and just that predatory like system of these trade schools or these fake schools getting at you, which um I'm curious, why'd you decide to stick with uh art for like for colleges, because you have film and you have your musical interests, but it seemed you kept at it with colleges even though you were scammed with from that university that s- I will not name.
I don't even think
But
they exist anymore.
I
They're
don't
not
think
even
so
around.
too. I don't
Screw that
know.
school. I'll say
Yeah,
the Art Institute.
yeah, Art
Fuck the Art
Institute.
Institute.
Yeah, I think I
Yeah,
got
straight up.
I got like a pamphlet when I was about to graduate high school, and like
Yeah.
I got like voicemails and whatnot too, and I'm like, what the fuck is? But I'm surprised that you weren't. I mean, at least I'm imagining if it was me and I had like all these student loans, but still deciding to like stick one stick to college and two stick with art. Like I feel what was you just
I
inherently knew that was something that you need to stick to, not maybe give it a shot at music or filmmaking or
I I really stuck to art and kind of pulled away from music because I recognized that drawing was the thing I did best. Whereas like playing guitar, like just coming across like so many great musicians, like I recognize like the skill gap, but like when it came to drawing, like I was, like in my own like little pools of people that I came across, like I was the one that was like really good at drawing. And staying in school was mainly because like I already felt trapped with like if I already got these loans and I want to pursue drawing because like that's what I feel strongest at. But like I'm in no position to get any work doing any drawing professionally, like and pay back those student loans. So like I felt like kind of trapped in one way, but like I don't know, like I kind of felt like with like Art Center and then hearing about like how expensive that school was, being like the most expensive in the country or whatever, like if I'm already in, then I'm just gonna go all in, like and I I felt strongly going into that school just because like I already like had some experience of like just being in like this was like my third college, like and like I have had like I had like my own personal experiences to pull from, so like I'm not just going straight from high school to that school, like I don't know, like I was like learning a lot, like a bunch of different like sociology and like physical political science and just like all these different classes that like kind of like exciting my brain or whatever, like and exciting my interests. Like I adapted to never following a degree audit, but only taking classes that I was genuinely interested in, because then I knew that I would want to like do the work inside of it because I'm trying to like answer my own questions opposed to just like doing some task sheet, like that's like mandatory, like it was my way of making school interesting to me and staying focused with it too. And that's why like Art Center just felt like perfect for me when I went there, like at that, the young 28s, like, yeah, like I was at that school at Art Center for 12 straight terms. Like
Damn,
I
you
didn't
went
take
straight.
any breaks off.
no
Yeah.
breaks. Dang,
Yeah.
respect.
But I mean, like, it was like more like like I was coming to that age of like the parent loans, like going to expire after a certain age, so I had to finish at a certain point. But that being such a demanding school, I took the minimum amount for full credit or for a full-time student, like so that way I could just like give all those classes like everything I got, like opposed to just being stretched thin and then just like, not really taking in, like those classes or those opportunities to learn because from where I'm from, like I wouldn't get those lessons anywhere else. Like just the valley doesn't really hold much value in the arts, like or at least like in drawing and painting. Like most people I knew that like used to draw like growing up, they either gave it up or they got into tattooing or something, and that seemed to be like a very common placement for people with like that type of skill trait, And I don't know, just like learning about my grandpa, like, and then learning about like all these different possibilities that that type of skill can take you, like I don't know. I just felt like I can make something happen, but I just don't really know what. and then like learning about like all these other like painters and other types of artists who like kind of made their own jobs. Like they developed a skill for doing whatever, like, and then they just get these random type of gigs that like never really existed before they started doing it.
Hmm.
And that's happened time and time again, so I don't know. I just always had faith in pursuing drawing than anything else.
That's amazing that you had a blueprint. Like you had your grandfather, and also you kind of grew up in a family that was, artistic leaning. Your dad, he's into music and stuff. That's such a foreign concept to me, and I'm sure to Sally too a little bit because being a child of immigrants, I don't think they had an awareness of like music, pop culture, like
Yeah.
even like a roadmap to having a career as an artist. Like they, most of my family doesn't really understand what I do still, but that's cool that you
Hmm.
like you had the faith in yourself to like I can make this work because I've seen it happen before. That's pretty sick.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, like it was kind of like blind faith too, like I don't
Hmm.
know, kind of like gambling, I guess,
Yeah,
like but
You're investing in yourself.
yeah,
yeah, and it was like the only way I really know how to, like it's the same type of mentality of someone who's like always going to the gym or something, like and just
yeah.
constantly developing their physical body, like to me this was like a way of developing like just like my mentality and just, I want to keep on having like a student mentality in a way where like I don't know, like I have come to learn that this is a long game, like in reality, like a lot of my favorite artists, like they've been doing it till they either died or, they're still doing it at like such an old age, and to do that, like to do something like for so long, you have to keep it fresh for yourself,
Hmm.
like, and you have to try to become very insightful with your own ways and kind of like every now and then looking at yourself like from like the third person view or from like and just I don't know like it's just like a lot of self evaluation like throughout the years and I think that's common. I always hear about it like with like comedians or whatever or just the imposter syndrome being like a thing with like a lot of different people in different trades,
Hmm.
so I don't know, I definitely have a lot of those moments, but they come and go just like projects or whatever.
What is your earliest music memory? Like, what got you into to the scene? Like, how did you get into hardcore? Like, what was your path from like? Was it just like an introduction to punk from skateboarding? Like, who got you into that? Like, how did you get into music?
I mean, introduction to punk through skateboarding was definitely a thing. Um, but like I started playing music, like I got my first guitar maybe at 9 or 10 years old, and like in elementary school, I think it was like fourth grade going to fifth grade. There was like some program that happened where students got selected to go to the Colburn School of Art in LA, and it was like a summer program, and like they're like you got exposed to like all these different things like tap dancing, like playing guitar, and like just doing like all this other stuff. And then since then, like I took to playing guitar, and then did my first band when I was 12 years old. I
Dang,
think like
me too.
like and yeah, and like played my first show, like around that age too, like but it's just like a middle school party.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah, yeah,
it's hard
yeah.
to like really count that one as like a
It
show or
counts.
whatever, It does, it's a I was like playing a bunch of different like rock then, but I think around or like yeah, like towards like the end of middle school, I was playing this game called Burnout, and they had this band called Comeback Kid
Nice.
in one of like their tracks, and yeah, like that was also like around like the start of like MySpace. So MySpace had like their top friends or whatever. So like you could find, I found Comeback Kid, and then I found like Bane and like all these other bands and stuff. Like and just went down my own rabbit hole, and it felt like personal to me because everyone around me didn't care for it, but like I really like like it really took for me, especially at that age and at that time, because another thing that happened was when I was 13, I had a little sister who passed away from leukemia. So like when that happened, and I came across that music, it was just like a perfect like channel of like the frustration that I had, like along with like, like the escapism of like video games, like that kind of like led me to that, but like I don't know, like it just like I started to like learn about like the lyrics and stuff, but like also just like the general energy of it. It was current bands. It wasn't like listening to like Misfits or Black Flag or like some old bands from like a different era. Like that's why like it just to me like it just felt personal and it felt real. And that's where like like in high school like I really went all out into music and was like playing in hardcore bands, like from like yeah like ninth grade to I don't know like my early 20s, but yeah, and I'm hardcore still like been like a big part of my life. Like pretty much the majority of the stuff that I paint is like from these shows that like I love.
What was the impetus for you to start documenting a live show, and who was the first band to let you backstage?
I started drawing shows because that week I was assigned to do 100 location drawings in like one of my early classes at Art Center. And when I first started at Art Center, like prior to that, like I was going to shows like pretty much like every week. And when there's like a good show that happens, like I don't want to miss it, even if I had like homework. So like I just took my homework to a show, and like my I I got like
Respect.
yeah, I mean like it was the first one. It was just straight up just to do homework and not miss a show, and my friends were like playing that show too. So like and hardcore is like it's not like as restricted as like a lot of like shows, like it's pretty open, like where you could be on stage if you want to be, or if like you have like the okay with like the band or whatever, like there's not much security that happens. Um,
Whoa,
but
I didn't know that.
yeah,
You
it's
can just like go up on the stage?
well,
Have you never
it's
seen a
really
hardcore
it's
show,
really
Sally?
encouraged for like
Do I
bands.
not look like someone who's never?
It's like
But yeah, sorry, Tree.
yeah, it's like it's a much more aggressive like punk show in my opinion. And like it's just people are getting on stage and diving off, doing stage dives, or like getting wild or whatever, or like rushing the vocalist and singing along like in his face with like the mic and stuff. And it's like part of like the energy and the chaos of the culture of it, yeah, like at the end of a show, like people who like are really like being involved with it, like they're feeling drained and like it's like having like a really, really good workout with like your favorite like musician, like and it's just like you just feel like really good and cathartic. But like yeah, like so that was like an easy way for me to like just be on stage with like a sketch pad and like a ink brush, but and having like friends who like continued playing music and then also like grew in like their music careers, and yeah, so like it started off as homework. But then as I was doing it, it was like a good response from like the musicians and stuff. And it became if I felt like a feeling of like respect amongst the musicians. And like in that scene, like there's like a lot of tough looking people and like kind of like
Mm.
tough personalities or like big personalities, But like when it came to me doing those drawings or whatever, like it was, I don't know, it was like a green light, like it was like an instant, like
Mhm.
nod of approval. Like I'd be drawing, and even like other shows, like where like I wouldn't know anybody, and like I have to work with like security, like where like they have to like see me doing what I'm doing, so that way I don't look sketchy. Like I would like tilt down like the drawing pad so that way they could see what I'm drawing, and then they look and like give me like a nod of approval. And whenever they do that, I'm like, can I go right there? Which would be like behind the barrier or something, like, because now they know what I'm doing, you know. And it would
Wait,
just,
how did you see? Like it
oh,
I don't
stage
think
lighting.
a concert is,
It,
oh,
it's,
it's
it's,
bright enough?
it's bright enough, like you probably have like 20 to 30% brightness, and it's like also like, so back to like being at art center, like I was really like competitive with just trying to get really good and as fast as I can because I again like you guys like like I was looking at people like you like who had like fantastic work that was just like always wowed me and because we're in like the same kind of playing field I was like all right I got to step up my game so we would be drawing like in class just like these posed models for set times or whatever with fixed lighting and it dawned on me that like drawing at these shows I'm drawing people that aren't posing with lighting that isn't fixed, like, and it was just like it was like Dragon Ball Z and like training with like these weighted clothes,
Oh, sick.
like it's just like, it was just like a strong challenge for me, like, and just like hearing about like other like artists in the past and like it being like a profession for people before cameras, like there'd be people like on the field drawing what's in front of them and trying to figure out like the architecture of like this scenario and like how people are interacting with that space you know um I don't know like it's there's like a long history to it that like I've come to learn and like so it seemed like a really solid thing to keep on pursuing and it was like also like working with like an ink brush opposed to like a pencil or whatever like I took away my ability to both like erase and also increase my visibility because it's the highest contrast of black versus white like so like that becomes even easier to see in like terrible like lighting conditions but pretty much like I would just try to build compositions like on stage and a lot of like the early stuff is just really really crude and rough which I really enjoyed but after a while I'm like showing it to all these different artists and stuff when I didn't get their likeness right that was like it killed the whole thing like it's like oh that's cool but like like they whereas like if I nailed the likeness like it'd be like a huge type of reaction like so I yeah like I've done like maybe like three and a half thousand like yeah 3,500 set drawings like
Oh my
over like the
god.
past like 10 years like
So
and
sick, dude.
a lot of bad work but now like it went being from like really crude to like really tight as tight as I can like while keeping like the looseness of like the live drawing like but like I'm trying to like marry like these two different ways of working of like that fast loose line with like this painterly like accurate value color and portraiture like along with it because to me like color like all the like I wanted them to be like documentary pieces where if I'm painting like a band and like this album just came out from them there's a set color scheme that goes with that album like so I got to incorporate that in the stage lighting like so that way that becomes like another like descriptive feature of like the painting like that sets like the time and place like and like again like getting more accurate I try to get more accurate with clothing as well because fashion is always changing even equipment too like people will be like rocking these specific guitars or these specific amps for a time and then they'll come a record and then everyone changes their sound or whatever like there's just like a lot of different things that I could pay attention to when working from life but like that all came from just like the mileage of doing it and like that awareness wasn't always inherently there but like I kind of like learned as I went
When you have to focus on so many things, especially during a live drawing, like the first of all the likeness, and then like you mentioned the maybe the equipment, maybe the clothing and whatnot. Because I read that you, like, I think this was from your bio, but you're focusing, you're trying to capture the spirit of the music and of the live event. So what does how does that, like, how do you keep that energy when you have all these other little things, or like, or how do you approach that, if that makes sense?
Um, body language is huge. I think like
Hmm.
that's like the biggest descriptor, like with creating, like these moments because I would grow up like being a fan of all these different bands and stuff, and I would see these old photos and stuff, and like the more like to me iconic ones are like the more active poses from not just like the musicians but like the audience, like and or like even like learning from film, like the power of like value, like in lighting, like to create
Hmm.
drama, like there's like a lot to like pull from, even like in just like pacing, like I'll take like an animation approach of like doing like an in-between drawing of motion where like I'll have like a hand, like a right hand, like in three different placements in one in the drawing, so that way it creates like an idea of movement, like or even having like a fast like brush stroke, uh, that like kind of like also like there's like a lot of different like tricks that we can use as illustrators to convey movement, um, and yeah, I mean like that's kind of like I think like would be like a lifelong pursuit of like finding different ways of incorporating it and finding appropriate ways to use it as well. Like so like when it comes to like the core drawing, I try to have like the more focal like focused characters like in these dramatic poses, like and like pay attention to the reaction of their poses as well of like those surrounding people, so that way it's like cause and effect happening to create like a lively, I don't know, image. Like yeah, I think that's kind of and how I try to go about like making it
Hmm.
feel active.
Yeah.
I imagine there's a push and pull in your mind. I mean, you're a huge fan of these people, obviously, and like the acts get bigger and bigger the longer you're doing this. Like being present for you, do you feel like fuck, I'm missing out on the show right now? Or does like you drawing it leave more of an impression in your brain and like there's more memory of capturing this time, Because I've noticed that when I draw in a sketchbook, I look back at that sketchbook if it was like 5, 10 years ago. I have like a very vivid memory of
Yeah,
doing it. I feel present. Do you feel that when you're doing these drawings?
definitely. I mean, like for me, like in my own musical past or whatever, like I went from like playing shows and attend like being fully involved attending, like these shows to like drawing these shows. And out of those three perspectives, like drawing it is by far like the most like personal and like I don't know, like it strongest impressions in my memory, because like that act of drawing on location, knowing that you only like it's a fleeting moment where like this band's probably gonna like you don't know if they're gonna last like a whole set or they'll fight in the middle of it and like end it like in 7 minutes,
Hmm.
like there's kind of like a do or die like fight or flight mentality that gets kicked in when I'm drawing. So like I'm becoming like hyper aware of like pretty much the entire surroundings because even like if I was like drawing from the crowd, like earlier on like I would still be like really near the pit and I'm having to focus on each person, the venue of the architecture, because those type of shows they only last at certain venues for certain periods of time, like until they have to get kicked out or whatever, like venues are like time and place too, so like they're as much of a character to me as like the musicians. So like I'm paying attention to those and then having to pay attention to like fucking elbow swinging next to my head, like and or like this person like trying to push past me or whatever. Like I have to hold like the sketch pad like or like sketchbook like tight to my chest so that way it's just firm and doesn't move. And I just like kind of like stay like get my arms really, really tight, and it's just like all like wrist work, like just like
Oh
pretty
my
much.
god.
So like at the end of shows, like I feel like super sore, like because like I'm having to stay still. And
Chewy, you're a tall guy. So
Yeah, you are.
if it was either me or AJ doing this, we would be like knocked out cold
yeah,
probably.
I
Just
mean,
like an elbow to the eye.
yeah, I mean, I'm lucky to be like 6'3" or whatever, like I could see pretty much wherever I'm at, like I'm
Nice.
usually like one of like, the tallest
Mhm,
people in the room, like and even so, like it's just like when you're drawing on location, you can't move.
mhm,
Like if I take a step to the left, like even like if I change like by like a foot, my entire perspective changes. Like all those like
Yeah.
vanishing point lines and everything, because like when I get started, like I'm just trying to figure out like those like maybe like five strong lines that give me my whole perspective. And then like I kind of like bounce around like the page, like going off those lines. But like yeah, so like I could see and everything, and I have to just make sure that I don't move. And that's why, like, like later on, and as much as I can, like, I try to draw from stage or from somewhere that's away from like the general audience because one, there's a big annoyance that happens is like, like if I'm in the audience, there's always like some drunk person that's like trying to like put their phone in front of like my sketch pad or whatever and then like take a
mhm,
video of like the band and like I'm just like their content, like not even like saying a word to me or whatever, like that happens like so much. Or even like people like just trying to start like a long conversations like, well, I draw too, like it's just like it's cool, like but it's just not the time and place.
Yeah.
And like it's just I try to like eliminate, like as many type of those type of distractions as I can. So like when I'm drawing like a show, I try to get all access, like whether it's through the band or through the venue or their managers or whatever. It's always like a different scenario. Um, but like I just try to like find my spot and like stay there for the entirety of the show or until like I feel like I have it and then I move on to like another possible perspective.
Awesome, dude. Damn. Respect. You mentioned the venue and the managers and like musicians. I think you started off with your friends, right? So like, can you describe to us the relationship between you and the musicians? Like at this point, I'm curious. Uh, just is it are you reaching out to them? Is your work like getting you more work? Like how do you relate to the musicians now? Like or how do you communicate and how do you get connected? All that stuff.
I mean, it's like a mixed bag, like it's a bit of both. Like I know some people from growing up and they're still musicians and like they're in bigger and bigger bands. So like I would draw them like growing up or like throughout the past like 10 years. And, like whenever I would draw like a show, like I'd be friends of one band and then they're touring with this other band. And then I'd draw them too, like, cause like usually at shows, like I have like a target, like where like I want to really draw this band. So I'm going to warm up and draw the other band, the opening acts, like, and then I'd show like everyone like as I did it or whatever, or like right as like they're breaking down their equipment. So that way there's no like confusion, like that, like I didn't do it from a photo or whatever, like a night. I did it during like that set. So like it would be like an instant like impression on them, like and like the next time like that they would tour or whatever, like I would just like hit them up like through like Instagram or whatever and be like, hey, could I draw this show? And it just kind of like was like that for a long time and it would snowball and like with like other bands and stuff. And like being like really like growing up with like the hardcore music scene, like it you start to recognize like who's like in what band or who runs like what like venue or whatever, like and like any scene, like if you're like active in it for a while, like you start to get recognized by other people who are also active in it, like and yeah, so it kind of like just happened organically, I think, like but a lot of like reaching out and then with other bands and other genres that like I'm not familiar with or whatever, I would just like do like the cold reach out, like be like, hey, I do this, like I would love to draw you like at this show that you're playing this weekend or whatever, like, and a lot of those type of like interactions too, like I would meet like the people who like worked at the venue or the people that worked at those venues that would frequently draw like the Echoplex or like Regent or like Lodge Room or whatever, like they would become familiar with me, so like it was that's why that could take a mixed bag where like sometimes like the venue will ask me to do something, sometimes like I'll ask a band if I could do something, and then a lot of music festivals too, like if I didn't know that anyone that worked at festival, I do like that cold reach out or try to get in through like a band that I knew that was playing it. And yeah, I mean, like just all it's all situation based, because like there's some bands that were like really active that like I would really draw that aren't active at all anymore. So like,
Mm-hmm.
different channels get closed and different ones open like all the time, but yeah, definitely the best scenario is to work directly through the band, like because in those scenarios, like they have like the most say, like they have more say like than their managers, than
Right.
the venue or whatever, because like they're the main act, like and yeah, there's like the directors of that night.
You're like a photojournalist, dude. You got a press pass and stuff. You got access. What's the reaction been like to, you described a little bit of it, but like obviously I'm assuming the musicians are super happy just to be documented. But like, any notable reactions? Any stories from like
I mean,
artists seeing your work after?
yeah, I mean, like it was like again, like Comeback Kid was like the first hardcore band that I got into. So I remember like I was doing this for maybe a year. So I had like some like confidence that was starting to build. And then they were finally playing in LA, and then I reached out. And then when I finally got like the yes, I'm like to like not only draw the show, but to like be behind like the amp or whatever for them. And like high school me was just like that's like my favorite band, So it was just like I don't know, like it was all like euphoria, like and same thing with like drawing like Bane's last LA show, like when they were doing that tour, or like writing like just like there's like a bunch of like shows that like really hit, and then in different scenarios, like where like when I was like doing like a bunch of stuff with Turnstile, like seeing like their shows, like because like to me like they're like huge, and like just being like a fan in like the hardcore scene, like their shows would always pop, like just like an explosion of energy like every time, like so like to be like gifted a green light, like to draw their shows or whatever, like and to be like, can I be right there? Can I be right there? Like in all these like random spots, like right behind the drummers, like just having like a little peek out like into like the audience or whatever, like they were like super cool, like and like allowing me like to just go free reign and like find like the best composition that like I could possibly find and draw from there.
Wow.
Like yeah, I mean like it was it's all like dream scenarios, like dream experiences to me, like I don't know, like I'll always be grateful for like all those moments, Um, yeah, but there's also times where it just straight up feels like work too, like where
Mm-hmm.
like I
Of
just
course.
gotta finish this assignment, like if it's like a band or an artist that like I don't really know, but I was asked to do it, like and like I turned this into like a job, like where it's what I have been doing pretty much like full time now for like 10 years, like never got a job like in house, like in a studio or something, or did any animation work or anything like that. Like I mean, like I would do like some like editorial stuff, like whenever like it comes around, but because my portfolio is so heavily like bands, like I just kind of like stuck to where like the iron was hot.
Mm-hmm. Can we? Yeah, that's a perfect segue to what there's this anecdote that I wanted to bring up to you when you went to an American illustration show in New York. I was also there. Sally was there. Leo was there. There's like all our homies were out there, and it was sick to be out there together. We are like all kind of living the dream and being like, "Oh my god, it's New York!" and like meeting all these art directors and stuff. I specifically remember you feeling kind of down, like you felt like you brought like all your sketchbooks and zines, and you had tons and tons of work to show. And I felt like you were explaining to me and our friends that you felt maybe misunderstood, or art directors weren't getting it, or the reactions from them were kind of negative or something. Like, can you tell us about your struggles? Because it hasn't all been easy. I think all of us go through that too, but you had a very specific experience.
Well, I mean, I still feel that way, like, because I feel like what I do fits in both the editorial and like the gallery world. You know, like what I'm doing is my intent is to create like these historical things, but it's surrounded by like the ethos of illustration. Like, and like I don't know, like it sucks in the illustration world where like you can't get work unless you've already done that work. Like art directors aren't really willing to, like, very rarely willing to take chances on that hiring you to do something when they've never seen you do it before. Like I feel like that's very rare. Like, and I don't know, like I felt like my work was really strong. Like every time like I entered like American illustration, like I would get in, like, but I would never get any work from it. Like, and I would do those like
Mm-hmm.
New York trips and try to meet with all these different art directors from publishing houses or magazines or whatever, like, and like I never got work from any of those trips, like, but the places were like that always encouraged me and was always inviting were like these music shows, like they were always inviting, like, and again, like I'm making like these physical paintings, like working with like acrylic and ink, like on paper or whatever, like, but because my focus has been these covering music, like it's not really, it seems like it's too foreign in the gallery spaces. Whereas to me, it's like I'm making like these physical like drawings, like drawings are always celebrated, like how come I can't get into these shows or be invited by this gallery or that gallery or whatever? Even when like I become familiar with like different scenes or whatever, like, because just growing up here in LA and just being around like the LA scene or whatever, like you know, painters recognize painters and stuff, like we all recognize that we go through like the same type of grind, like regardless of like what our topic is, like we're
Mm-hmm.
still having to go through like something that's very strong and often misunderstood, like, yeah, I mean, yeah, I still feel that way, like where I'd love to do like more editorial stuff, like, or be able to do like some ad campaign work, like for like my favorite video games or whatever, like I've honestly like sent out so many like different like resumes over the years and I've never gotten one response.
Wow.
Like not one like response,
Holy
not
shit.
even like an interview, like, and it's just like it's weird to me, but like I get all these accolades from like doing this stuff, like, and but again, like I'm getting work just by like I don't know, like I put out a painting and then it has its response, like, and then that tends to generate more work, but yeah, like when it comes to that other stuff, like I feel like it's just I don't know, like if I put myself too much into a niche and I need to start doing like portraiture again because portraiture is just easy to me, like it's just,
Mm.
but like at the same time, like it takes away the time to work on these other band drawings that like I have to finish, like,
Right.
and these, like now, like I'll like work from like 9 a.m. to like 2, 3, like a.m., like very
Damn.
often, Like especially like if I'm trying to like push it out, like while like that show is still relative in the mass subconscious or whatever, because there's always another show, and then
Yes.
like the hype or like the excitement of that show just dissipates over time. Like so it's just I don't know. Like I'll do a painting like sometimes like overnight, and then other times it'll take me a couple months, and I'll be actively working on it. But
Wow.
it's just again, it's all mileage to me. So like even if like it doesn't use or whatever, like and it just falls flat, at the very least to me it's practice. Like and like that's the only way I could really look at it in a positive way. But yeah, like when it comes to like doing like trying to like be familiar in the traditional illustration worlds, which is, like editorial publishing or, like gallery work, like I still feel like I'm an odd duck, like, and yeah, like I want them to be like regarded as like fine art pieces, because to me it is the same attempt as some of the other like fine artists, like, and it's also the same attempt as like old editorial, like where New York Times used to hire like illustrators to go to like Yankees, like practice or whatever and just do some drawings or to like the set of whatever show or movie that's like being made right now and then create like BTS drawings. Like
Hmm.
that's ideally where I feel like my niche really comes into play, but it's just not really something I see, like published ever. Like I hope it changes because like I feel like there's been like a huge digital trend that's dominated and it's become like overly saturated, like and I think like and I'm hoping that traditional ways of working is going to start to take dominance, you know,
Definitely, yeah.
but it's I'm still young, like and I hope to have a long career and that it all shifts in whatever ways.
Yeah, man. You said it was the long game.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, like even with editorial, like I'm not even talking about fine art because that is a whole completely different world. Like
Yeah,
there is such a, especially with some of these galleries, they draw a very like, it's a very hard line between illustration and what is acceptable in a gallery.
yeah,
So I mean that aside, like with editorial, I feel like that is such a like, even within the last few years is shifting so much and things are just constantly changing. I think sticking to, I mean, maybe this is coming from someone who's becoming a little jaded, but sticking to what you enjoy and creating work that is like true to you. I mean, I shouldn't say that like this is like, oh, paid off and whatnot, because I haven't done this that long compared to some other illustrators and whatnot. But it seems like eventually, people will recognize that there's gonna be something that will come of it. And it might not be what you think it will be or what you expect it to be. I mean, that's from my short time here in that game editorial publishing world. It seems like I'm always constantly getting surprised at what I don't know is possible.
yeah, definitely.
Like, so I think, I mean, I think it's like, it's also obviously very admirable that you're, still like hustling, Chewy. I mean, people need to hear it. It's not easy. It fucking sucks. Like being,
Yeah,
I'm like, I tell this like when I go to like the dentist or see my doctor and they ask me what I do, and I'm like, oh, I'm an illustrator and whatnot. And they're like, "Oh, how is that?" I'm like, "It fucking sucks." Like
Yeah.
I tell them, it's hard, and I would say like I wish I didn't love this job or love this career. Otherwise, I would do anything else, you know? But
Yeah.
I do love it, and it love it. And that's the thing, like it's important to have like the support and people who you can talk to about this, but it's also like so important to voice that like it sucks. You know, there's so many moments where you really feel like giving up, at least, you know, for me anyway. And the fact that you're still, chugging along and just like really, no one's giving you work, so you're making work for yourself and creating opportunities for yourself. That's I think that is what will pay off in the future. That's
Definitely.
what, yeah, that's what creates a career instead of like a momentary, hobby.
Your
Yeah.
time will come, Chewy. Your time will come. I think it's just like a matter of time till the right people recognize it. The right art director will reach out and see the right assignment for you, and like you're already creating your own lane. It's like I I have full faith that it's gonna work out. Um, but I mean, Sally, you had a pretty good follow up question to mine. You want to ask that?
What was the follow up question?
Okay, I'll,
I
I'll
got
ask it.
I got too invested in the conversation.
So I mean, I
I
was talking
forgot
about
what
I
question are
was
we on? Sorry.
I was I was talking about your struggles in the illustration world, but Sally's follow up question was how do you get back up after you've been knocked down? Like receiving so much rejection can't be easy. So how do you
No,
deal with that?
I mean, definitely not. But I think like that's something that's the nature of this profession, like, and like a lot of other professions too, of like just constantly putting yourself out there and then hearing no, and then having these failures, but then shifting your perspective of like, or I don't know, like recognizing what you can learn from those moments, because like there's always like there's more lessons in failure than anything else, but I don't know, like it's rough, but there's been so many moments that like I couldn't, like even imagine, like happening where like it'll be like a random Tuesday night and then I'll be like, hey, we're recording in the studio like for like this special record or whatever. Come through and draw, like
Sick.
okay, one tomorrow
Hmm.
morning, like, and if I was doing anything else, if I had like put myself in a position where I had like a 9 to 5, I would have to pass on that, like,
Mm-hmm.
and then, like all these like different like special moments, like it's just like, a freelancer's life, like it's, you don't know what job is around the corner and you also have no idea when it's going to come,
Yeah.
like, yeah, I mean, like when I'm having like these dry moments of like no work, like, and it just, I'm sending out all these applications and just being like, fuck it, I'm done, like I just gotta like figure out how to pay the bills,
Yeah.
like, and just having that, like, just those like life stresses, um, I don't know. I've been fortunate where just something comes along, like, but I'm still like actively like drawing and painting like almost every day,
Yeah.
like, because again, like I recognize that this is what I do best, and and I am fully aware of like the nature of it being like hot and cold, like for unpredictable amounts of times, like, yeah, like it's all like a learning thing, like I'm sure like if I did get like an interview or something, I would have probably like jumped on that if it was during like a time of like no work or whatever, like,
Yeah.
and then like I just, I don't know, I always hear about like how like when you go to school with people who do that type of profession, like it's always like a small amount of people who you went to school with that continue to do that, like, and I don't know, I want to be in that small percentage,
Yeah.
like, and yeah, I I just want to do anything that requires me to draw or paint, like, and
Oh
like
yeah.
pay my bills through that, like, and again, like that's where like I think like my old interests, like can also become like different avenues of making a living, like yeah, like I've stayed genuine to like my interest in drawing these bands for so long, but at the same time, there's been a lot of situations where it's felt like work and it doesn't have that same appeal to me. And, like the reality is, like we're always evolving with our own experiences and interests. And I want to keep up with that. So I don't know, like realistically, if I'll be drawing shows like a year from now, like 5 years from now, or whatever, like if nothing really comes up or no opportunities come up, or like, or like I come across like another type of job that's like exciting to me, like I'll probably just stick with that. But that was like my whole mentality of going through college, and it really worked out, like, and I've, yeah, again, been fortunate to be doing this for 10 years, and I cannot predict that, like,
Yeah, man.
yeah, I mean, like it's all an unknown, and I'm okay with it being unknown as long as I'm actively trying to better myself with my skills or whatever, and just, yeah, trying to figure out what I'm interested in focusing on next.
Damn. Well said. I don't know. Everything you've said I relate so hard to because I think we've had such a parallel coming up and I mean I think I can't speak for Sally, but I definitely feel um this life of freelancing is it's difficult, but like that getting comfortable with that unknown, but also being ready for any opportunity that comes and having the availability to do so. Um I love it, but it's really fucking hard when nothing's coming.
Yeah.
Um but
I've
yeah.
accepted that I'm just not gonna have an easy life.
Yeah.
But it's
Or
fun
like,
though. I
I
think
mean, it's
we
an
all
okay, okay. Wait, full disclosure.
yeah,
It's
hold
an
up, hold up.
easy life compared to
Yeah, recognize your privilege, dog.
yes, yes. But I've just accepted the fact that I'm always gonna have to be working and hustling and
Mm-hmm.
but the thing is though, like I mean we're like AJ and I started this podcast thing when we were like at the busiest we've been. And I think it's just a little bit of like the personality, the type of people that get into this job. Like it's I don't know. I feel like I can't sit still anymore. Like there's all and it's is it the job turning me into this or is it me the type of person seeking this out, you know?
Interesting.
I mean, I think
So
it's,
maybe it's on me. It's
no, I think it's definitely part of the personality, like I'm definitely a introverted type of person, like don't go to parties, I don't go out to bars or anything, like, and even in college when I would go out to bars, I'd bring my sketchbook and be drawing the entire time, like,
Love that.
yeah, I don't know, like and that's probably like a social, like thing for me of just like being scared to like interact or whatever, like, and just always feeling that green light. It's like, oh, that's a cool drawing. And then like, I'd be cool to keep on drawing, but like, I don't know. I definitely want to like just keep on exploring other ways of working, like outside of like what's been working, because,
Right.
like, like this feeling of it just really being rough and just stressful. I think it's another thing that fluctuates. I think right now it's like that, but like I hear about like all my idols, like they go through like periods of grace, like, and then that frustration and stress comes back in a whole other way, like, again, I think it's just another part of like the nature of like what we do as like independent people, like, yeah, I mean, like whether it's like a long-term project or a short-term project, like I'm open to any of it because I have to be, and that's part of like the acceptance of it. But also the reality of it too is like I want to have a family, and I want to have like be able to like afford a home and all that, and when things are rough in the freelance world, like I don't know, like I have to like I'll probably have to completely shift gears if like things get dry for too long, like
Yeah, for sure.
like that's the reality of it too, and I may have to return back to like the independent thing with a whole new perspective based off that job security lifestyle, but I've never known job security, so I feel like that's why I've always been comfortable being in these situations, even like when I have like negative in my account or whatever, like just like throughout my 20s and stuff, like I don't know. I was hearing like an interview earlier today on with Quentin Tarantino and like just talking about how he was like dirt poor like throughout his entirety of the 20s, like and like you just never know when things will hit, and I feel very confident with my work that it will stand the test of time, because it's deeply involved with so many different assets outside of myself, like yeah, I mean, like, but the real test of time, I guess, is like at least starting 30 years from when it's created, like at least, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, for now, like, I just want to keep on finding like different possibilities and different people to collaborate with and to work with people who see me at a peer-to-peer level opposed to like, I'm your boss, like, and then I don't know, like that type of relationship has never really worked out with me. Like
Hmm.
or it's just like not worked out, but like it just doesn't resonate. Like I don't find a lot of, unless it's like a great leader. I mean, I just haven't come across like an in-house situation like where like I could really come across a good team leader or something,
Hmm.
But yeah, I mean, it sucks now, but I have faith that it'll get good later and
Dude,
hopefully
I
sooner
think
than later.
time will be very kind to you because the type of work you're making, um, generations can appreciate different eras that you've been involved with. Like you look at Glennie Friedman or like certain people who were in the culture at a certain time capturing it. Like they're revered 20, 30, 40 years later. Like it's just going to be like, oh shit, Chewy was at Turnstiles, whatever. Or like he was behind the kid at Ceremony Show. Like it's just going to only value itself more. But even that's not important. Like what you're saying is like infinitely more important that you're loving the process and wanting to get better as an artist. Like that's probably the your highest concern. Obviously monetarily it doesn't, it's like a difficult place to be, but like I think in your soul you're doing the right thing, man.
Yeah, until I don't know, until I can't, But
Yeah.
I,
I
yeah,
mean, if nothing else, you've proven yourself to be super adaptable to any situation
Yep.
or to all kinds of situations. So, wherever your path leads you, like I like I think you'll be able to like change or revamp yourself or do whatever it takes to, pursue both like, your create like to be creatively, I can't even say it, like creatively satisfied and also financially stable. And like with this whole artistic creative career, it's no one would no one can say what will happen. And
I
I
can say
think,
what's gonna happen in 2 weeks.
well,
Shit's gonna go down. Chewy's gonna explode. But before we get to that, I have like a list of things because you have had so many experiences. Like we can't cover all of it. Like I would love to pick your brain about like every artist, musician, show you've been to. But I'm gonna drop some names and just tell us the first thing that comes to mind. If it's a story or like a show or something, or an experience. But is that cool? We just I can
Yeah,
drop you some names and you give me your thoughts.
of course.
All right, number one, Sound and Fury.
Sound and Fury feels like a home for me. I grew up absolutely loving it from like the first festival that they did, and I've been to every single one other than 1 year. And like I went from like being a huge active person in the crowd, like stage diving and all that, to playing like some pre-shows, then to
Dang.
like drawing it, and like they were also like really cool because they really like gave me the green light, like and with any festival, like you're seeing like a ton of great bands that you would like, but like I was able to really hone my craft through like a lot of their shows and like through like the years of like covering their festival. Like, yeah, I mean, I think I've drawn or painted it 5 years, 5, 6 years now. I don't know, but I've done a lot, like and yeah, I love Sound and Fury.
Hell yeah. All right, Raymond Pettibone.
A pillar, an artistic pillar for me, um, mainly through like the introduction of his art and music, and then leading to political interest, like and then also like the language of line work with like an ink brush, like which has its own history, like I feel like he really pushes it with just how he activates like the drawings, like through like a fast loose line or like a slow controlled line, you know, I don't know. I always found his work very beautiful, and for a long time, like you imitate your idols, like so like it was a big push to like just work black and white ink and try to like figure out how to make a strong drawing in that way, like but after a while I've always been like, well, have you heard of Raymond Betabon? When I showed someone my work, like I knew I had to switch it up.
Dude, I'm sure you remember it was like me, you, and Jules at that talk, and then the room was full when Raymond Pettibone came to speak at Art Center, and then like 2 hours later, it's just me, you, and like a handful of other people left in the crowd because he was like going
Just
on and on and
rambling.
on. Yeah, but he was awesome. It was legendary. But I totally agree. He's the man. How about Trinidad James?
Trinidad Trinidad James is a very, very, very lovely friend. He was very, very open and like super supportive, and like when I did like work for him, like it was just like I think he was probably like my first like big artist that like I really worked with. Like where it was just like working directly with each other, no like in between with like a label or whatever, like and it was like a very peer-to-peer relationship from completely like left field, like I couldn't really predict ever working with him, but like over the years, like yeah, he's been a great friend, like and
Wow,
he's just an inspiring person to me.
dude, that's sick. Because do feel like he was. I was like, it was super out of left field because I seen you doing hardcore shows and more like punk rock related stuff. To see like a pretty big rapper come out and like back you was like really cool. Um,
Can
all
I
right.
ask a question?
Oh yeah, go ahead. It's fine.
It might veer off a little, so we can edit. But I, s- since you have so many, and you are a musician, and but you've worked with so many musicians, and you have so many musician friends. Like, I'm curious, like, what's the difference? Like, do you see a difference between illustrators, artists versus musicians and their process, or do you see a similarity between the two, like the
There's a lot of
overlap or something completely different?
there's a lot of similarities, but there's also like a lot of like big differences. You know, I mean, like the similarities is just like you know putting your time and effort into a project that you want to express yourself with, like, and I feel like with us as illustrators, we we learn to communicate through like line and color, whatever, like that's a whole other language. With musicians, their musical equipment, whether it's like their voice or their musical instruments, like that's their language. Like I loved Jimi Hendrix growing up because he was always with his guitar, and he was someone who could communicate just through playing, like just like emotionally, or just like, or even just like how like old like orchestras used to be, like, or like classical music, could go and tell like a story just through like beats per minute, or like just like tone, like there's so many different ways to communicate, like, and I think that's where like there's an analogous feeling of putting in the work that, like, like I think that they recognize with me, like they recognize someone who's just putting in the work, you know, um, but like their audiences are completely different, and like it's, yeah, I mean, with an illustrator, like a band could be hot for a minute and then just completely drop off, like, and I guess like that could be the case too with like illustrators and painters, but I feel like with successful painters, there's more of a probability of it having a longer lifespan, you know, um, because, like just trends in music just change so much, like, and that's where it becomes like a descriptor of their era, you know, um, but I guess like the same could be said with like drawing and painting too, like I'm hoping digital dies, but yeah, I, yeah, I think it's just similar, similar in a really strong fundamental way.
Hmm. Interesting. Yeah, thank you for
Great
that.
answer. And digital, I think analog is definitely, it's trending upward. We're gonna see it. And all right, next one. How about trash talk?
Trash Talk, uh, they are a powerhouse of a band that is pretty much like on their own path of like having like a strong legacy, like, and I was fortunate to become friends with a few of the members, and like they gave me like green lights to draw, and like were really open with me, like whenever I would want to draw them, like, but they're also like, again, like on their own path, like they're not like a typical hardcore band, like they're not playing Sound and Fury, they're they're doing like things on their own, like, which I find like really inspiring, because just like all of us as independents, like they're making their own lane and defining their own history, like, and that's what I want to do with like my own work, so like I look at them like just being inspired.
Sick. How about Jeffrey Smith?
Jeffrey Smith was a huge like artistic father for me, like in a way where like he really helped push me and like pursue like location drawing and drawing from life and drawing with ink, like, and he's a master, like he's like a master that like I came across, like, and like I think we we got along purely based off like like our ability to draw and our love for drawing from life, like, yeah, it was just another example of, to me, of like someone who had like such a long career and always like evolved in his own way.
Mm-hmm. I definitely, he came to mind because like I see his influence on your work. He definitely influenced the way that I draw as well. Just that initial class that he teaches. I think it's Head and Hands.
Yeah, Head and Hands
Um,
and illustrative storytelling.
Illustrative storytelling, yeah. So it's like the location based thing, and also just like starting point on a figure when you're drawing, and like the likeness comes out so powerful in his class. The way he teaches how to
Yeah.
draw, and the way you see the world, and
I think
it's
that's like
very
the main thing. It's like he teaches you how to like really see, like really pay attention. Like that was
yeah.
like the biggest like takeaway from, like any of his instruction, like or his critiques on work,
Hmm.
like just pay attention to what you're really looking at. Don't generalize it like you're so much like animation and edit and entertainment, like drawing education really pushes on you, like is the constant generalization. But like if you pay attention, like Jeff has like the same type of mentality to me as like Lucian Freud, like where like he's just really looking at what he's trying to draw and paint, like and that's something that like I attempt to do whenever I'm working from life.
Excellent. All right, got three more for you. Um, let's do ceremony.
I love ceremony. They're,
Me too.
I mean, like yeah, they've become friends over the years from being like a fan to becoming a friend. Like it's
Crazy.
cool, like it's crazy, like I don't know, like this past February, like I got to do like the artwork for like their 10-year anniversary of their Roanoke Park LP show
Yes.
at the Palladium.
Great
And
painting.
thank you. But like I remember going to that record release show, like
Oh
and
wow.
just like being like, like in awe of like that band, like and every time like they're like another band, they're like Turnstile where like they're just explosive, like and they're a band to me that like just like really resonated, like from like the moment I first heard them like in high school or whatever, like yeah. And now to like just be friendly with them and stuff, like and have them want to collaborate on stuff is like awesome. Like it's like a dream
So sick,
scenario.
dude. Yeah, you're living the dream. Said it twice today in this interview already. Dang. All right, second to last, the Marias.
I love the Marias as well. The Marias is like, I mean, like like I work on stuff that I really love. I feel like my strongest work, like with the band stuff, is always like the bands that I really love. Like and the Marinos is like another like they're like an LA band that like I pretty much have seen like almost all the majority, like a good majority of like their like LA shows and stuff. But like I forget exactly how like I came in contact with them, but like just to be able to like make some paintings for them or like be there for like their last like album release to draw it and stuff like I don't know it they're all like cherished memories, like just like when you look back at like any of your old drawings or whatever, like you remember like how you feel or whatever, like all these different like specific memories come into play, like it's just nothing but fond memories with like the Marias, like both listening like countless hours while working on other stuff, like to, yeah, just painting them. Like, yeah, feel very fortunate to like to have done stuff with them.
I'm sorry, I'm just looking at AJ's face. You're like,
I'm
so he's
loving this,
so
dude.
happy hearing about your
No, man.
stories, Chewy.
For real, man. There's like a kinship amongst like um musicians and artists, and I think I don't know. A lot of our interests just align, and I'm just like geeking to pick your brain, dude. So thanks for bearing with us. All right, last one, Turnstile. There's more to say, but I'd love to know what you have to say about Turnstile.
I think that was like the biggest thing in, I don't know, to me that like really married and solidified this as like as a serious thing of like just drawing bands and like being involved in that world. Like I got hit up to work with them like around in the pandemic, and I had just done these fashion paintings for this company Brownstone, run by like Warner and Waverly Watkins, who are like two of like my best friends, and like that series of like like making those paintings for people that I loved turned into like an opportunity to work with a band that I really loved. Like it just like the foundation of it is like very strong to me, like with like how I think about back at it, like and then like I first did some posters like illustrations, like for them for like their first shows after, the lockdowns and stuff. And it was like kind of like the announcement era of like their new material which was coming out. And I did a portrait of them in that poster along with like I incorporated like the drawing I did for your show, the In Waves group show. Um,
Oh, whoa.
yeah, so like that was like the top part of it, and then like on the bottom corner was like a portrait of like the whole band.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, I mean like it was just a really well received thing where like they asked like if they could use it for like their EP cover for like their first release,
Wow.
like for like the Turnstile Love Connection. And like that was just like to me like I always wanted to do like I want to make an iconic like cover, like with a band that I love and like that like it wasn't the record cover, but it was like the EP cover, like and it still like hit those like feelings to me, and then
Sick.
just like having like the having that itch of like during the pandemic, like there was like a big recognition of like how people miss shows, you know, like that was like something that was like kind of like a surprise good takeaway, like during that time. And for me to go like right into like working with Turnstile and drawing those shows was like a huge gust of wind like in my sails, like to keep on like trying to make like the strongest work I could possibly make in those moments. And like feeling the confidence, that I had like their backing to do it, like I don't know, like that's probably like the biggest blessing that like I've come across, like in my own professional career of, like drawing and working with bands, like yeah, I mean like they're amazing. They're gonna stand the test of time, like and yeah, I mean I'm excited for what comes next with them, like and I'm just as big a fan as like anyone else who loves them.
So cool, man. And you're like forever entwined with them.
What's
In a
Doug Low on
a very
record?
tangible way. Yeah, dude, you're on wax. All right. I lied. I got one last dude to tell you about. Chuy Hartman's 10-year retrospective at the Punk Rock Museum. Tell us all about it.
Yes. So I was asked to have my first solo show at the Punk Rock Museum. Like I'm going to be showing pretty much almost everything from like the past 10 years, which is like a bunch of like unseen sketch version drawings, like along with like fully fleshed out paintings, like with all my sketchbooks on display, along with like all the stuff I did with Turnstile and all these other record covers that I did. Um, and yeah, I mean, it's I've been wanting to. I always felt like I wanted to do like a 10-year show, like for as long as like for like a long time, just had no idea where or when it would be, and like I feel like that's like that came with like a jaded feeling of like why am I not getting asked by like or getting familiar with these galleries here in LA, like but then like the punk rock museum like happened, like and that's something that like I couldn't foresee, and yeah, like now I'm gonna do my 10-year retrospective show there, like, and I that weekend too of the opening, Jesse Michaels from Operation Ivy is gonna be doing like
Oh,
guided tours,
he's
like
doing the
for
guided tour?
yeah, like that
Is he doing
day,
it on Friday?
yeah, he's doing
Oh
it
shit, I gotta
Friday of
buy
the
that.
opening and all that weekend,
Damn.
so like the 14th, I think. But
Damn.
like it's wild, like, and I know like it's a spot that's like fitting because I'm covering like this modern era of like what punk was, like being hardcore today, like, and it's being in the museum and I see my work, like, and I hope, like that my work is gets into that world of like being showcased in museums along with other great artists or whatever, like I see them and take my work as like that seriously, and I want the test of time to do that, so to be involved with like the punk rock museum, like it's very cool,
Yeah, man.
but again, like something that I couldn't really foresee, like, and I hope that the punk rock museum also stands the test of time, like, so that way this lineage continues to grow, like, because I really see like hardcore today being looked at like punk was like in the 90s, because in the 70s and 80s it was like just an underground scene that no one really paid attention to. But now everyone knows who like the Misfits and Black Flag and all these other bands are. Like I think that's what's happening with like hardcore, like during my generation, like, but yeah, I just want to be a representative of the current era of hardcore, because again, like this stuff is meant to be seen as time and place paintings, like I loved Goya's Disasters of War because it depicted like Napoleon's like era in Spain, like, and like through drawings you're able to communicate, like the emotions of that time, like that's what I want to do with like my drawings of these shows, like, and I hope that in time it gets looked at like, you know, anything else that's put into museums.
It will. It definitely will. I have full faith in that. Looking back at 10 years, like that's an incredible feat. 10 years of your work. Is there anything that you've learned? And in those 10 years, has your outlook on art making changed in any way from when you started?
I mean, just looking at 10 years and seeing how fast that really goes by is pretty crazy, because 10 years before that, I was studying film and animation, like, and before that, like it was a whole other interest, So, like, 10 years is like a good amount of time, but I'm also seeing it as like kind of like a short amount of time in like the whole, just looking at history or whatever, it's like just like a blip. But, you know, when you're looking at something so close, you don't really pay. I don't know. It really went by really quick. Like it is wild to think, like that it has been 10 years. But yeah, I think what I've really learned, like is how much I could change within that time, like, and how I could grow to really love something and also fall out of love of something, like within that time frame, like, and that's another like lesson of like of how I got to just be open to whatever comes next, even though I can't really predict or as much as I could hope for something to happen within the next 5 years. Like I got to be open to something completely like left field, just like Trinidad James happening. Like
You're
I could just, yeah,
gonna play a video game, Burnout 7, and hear a new kind of music that you're gonna chase and document.
yeah. I mean,
We really appreciate like you taking all this time. We have like a little segment at the end where we do like, you know, a handful of fun questions that are really quick. You down for that?
of course.
All right. You want to ask one, Sally?
Yes. Let me just double check. Okay. Um, I mean, we already brought up Raymond Pettibone, but any other like painters or artists and illustrators you like really look up to, like you see as like as AJ would put it, like the Mount Rushmore of artists?
Mount Rushmore of artists. That's tough because I feel like that also changes over time too. But like,
Yeah. Uh,
I don't know,
And
Alice
fuck
Neal.
Mount Rushmore, honestly. Sorry.
True. But like, like
Hmm.
some like painting and drawing idols, I would say is like Alice Neal, just
Yep.
creating like amazing portraits from life, just documenting the people in her neighborhood, you know,
Hmm.
uh, Goya, like being another huge like influence and pillar, Hockney, like a lot of like artists who like work from life, um, just because like that's how I work or like what I really gravitate towards, like it's like one thing, but like also, crap, I'm blanking on the name, but the artist who did all the artwork for Metal Gear Solid, like
Mm.
it's just like amazing, like black and white ink brush work, like that was hugely influential, like I would say more so than Pettibon, but yeah, or like Jason Gagel who did like the stuff for like MF Doom, like or Rick Griffin too, who did all like the stuff during like that era of like the psychedelic rock era, like explosion, like he was probably like king to me, like when it comes to like working with pen and ink and just great letter design. And I don't know, there's like so much. Um, yeah, Karen Mama Anderson is really, really sick. Um,
Hmm.
like, and that's like an oil painter, like, and maybe one day, like, I'll dive back into oil and start to like emulate that type of like work or whatever, just because like I love it so much, like that
Yeah.
super looseness, like. But I don't know, it shifts a lot. But for sure, like when I was in college, Pettibon was like a huge pillar, like and you know, I don't know, like Otto Dix, like with like
Hmm.
the German expressionist movement. There's like so many like painters in that time, like kind of bounce around. Like a current artist I really
Yep.
love is like Jonas Wood and Cleon Peterson.
Hmm. Yeah,
Like,
man. Beast. How
yeah.
about four favorite filmmakers or like Mount Rushmore? We can change the Mount Rushmore. How about Angkor Wat or like the Great Wall of China or
Sorry. Yeah, sorry, AJ. I should have brought that up.
Yosemite Valley of filmmakers
I don't know. Filmmakers like it's
or
Kuros.
films? Maybe that'll be easy.
I mean, Kurosawa is huge. Tarantino is huge.
Hmm.
You know, I don't know. I feel like when it comes to like film, there's like a lot of like base, like very common answers that I probably like say yeah to. But I don't know. Like Nolan, like my favorite like Nolan movie is The Prestige, just because
Oh,
like
so
it's just
good.
like so well written. Like and like I wish I could see that movie again for the first time.
Dude, me too. Me
Like
too. I say that all the time about that and like Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. Like those are movies that you want your memory erased to watch again.
yeah, like definitely. But like like when I was in college, like the movie Whiplash was like huge because like I felt like such a kinship to like the main character, like of just being in
Hmm.
this prestigious school and just trying to like be the best possible version of himself,
Hmm.
like I don't know, but that's why like I feel like with like finding picking favorites, it's just such a fluid
Yeah.
option, like there's always going to be someone new, or I hope that I come across my new favorite filmmaker, like,
Nice.
or like my new favorite painter or something, because like there's always that possibility, just like when there's like no good music that's currently out, there's always
Hmm.
something really good around the corner, you know.
Yeah. I always think people aren't looking hard enough when they say that. They're like, man, there's nothing good out. You know how
Yeah, but
big the
you could
fucking
do
planet is?
just like anything. You feel jaded to look, like, and
True.
it's just
True.
it has. I feel like the best stuff happens organically, like at least like the stuff that really like sends, like that hits like the strongest.
Got one, Sally?
uh,
You can come
I
up with it.
mean,
These are you don't have to use these.
I mean, I'm yeah, I'm looking at the list and it's like I feel like a lot of these questions we've
We
asked
cover yeah.
already.
I
Like
have
we
I have a
covered it
couple
through our
more in my brain.
Okay, I mean, Go for it.
All right, like like albums you can't live without, or that you don't skip, or that like were super formative to you. But I'd love to
Yeah,
know
I
yours.
mean, like the whole like Kill My Kid with the Dead era was like huge for me. Terror Los of the Low was like really big to me, like when that came out. Um, I mean, before hardcore, Jimi Hendrix, pretty much like his whole discography, like was always just like playing like in the background at my shop, like and just never skip, like, but there's old jazz. I mean, like my wife is the biggest like musical influence to me, like where she just shows me so much good stuff that I had no idea about, like, and that's with anything, like music is like a time and place thing. So like I loved it back then, and then revisiting it now, like I'll probably skip it, like because I'll probably have listened to it to death, or it's associated with like a type of memory, But that's most things when people come across something that they love, you know. Good bands to check out. I would say check out this
Ooh,
band
yeah, give us a.
Automatic. Um, Automatic is really really sick.
You got a
I would,
good. That was a good list. That was a
but
good list.
Yeah, that was a great list. We know you're inspired by music and we're inspired by film and animation, and but anything else that maybe we would be surprised about that inspires your art?
I mean, video games for sure.
That's
Video
surprising.
games
Hmm.
is huge, probably. I would say, at least for like recent stuff, like there's been like a lot of big and more impressions like in that world than animation or film lately. You know,
Hmm.
uh, yeah. I mean, like I play pretty much like everything. I'm a console
Wow.
player, but like really really hyped to play Dragon Ball Sparking Zero. But
Whoa! I didn't know there's a new Dragon Ball game. That's cool.
yeah. But yeah, video games for sure. Like there's because like it's like a big combination of like everything. Like of animation and film, but also just like the open sandbox of like finding your own perspective of like this is a cool like shot right here. Like I don't know, and just like storytelling in general. I feel like they're the most engaging type of storytelling to me. You know, um, so there's like some like really good campaigns. But I mean, I'm sure like everyone talks about Elden Ring or something. Like and like that's just like mind blowing how like intricate and detailed and just sublime it looks. You know, but yeah, I mean, like usually, like if I'm painting all day, I'll take a break and play video games.
That's
Like
sick.
even like when I was in school, like and I had my studio like on campus, like during those 30-minute breaks, I'd go in the studio and play some Rocket League. Like
Hmm.
yeah, I don't know, keeps. I feel like it wakes me up a bit, but also like tunes out the stress of whatever I'm stressed out about. You know,
Nice, man. Well, I think we could put a stamp on it. But thank you for making the time. And like, I just gotta say, seeing you throughout school to where you're at now, and the uh, the amazing places that you'll absolutely go inevitably. Like, we're very proud of you, and it's just sick to know you and hyped for your show, man. Hyped to be out there with you in Vegas.
thank you, man. It really means a lot. Thank you so
I
much for
learned
having
so
me.
much.
Yeah,
I
man.
learned so much about.
I know. Sorry, Sally. I definitely took the steering wheel on this one, but
No, no, no. It's
yeah,
great that
I was hyped.
I'm the student right now in this conversation,
I know.
and
Be
I'm
like
just
Chewy.
soaking it
Never
all in.
always be a student. That's excellent
That's
advice.
right. Always be a student.
A huge thank you to Chewy for taking a break from his retrospective prep to chat with us. It was awesome.
Yeah, I learned a lot, and you were fanboying so much, AJ. So you actually went to Chewy's show. So how was it? Let the people know how what your experience was like.
It was a freaking blast. Um, so me and two of my former bandmates, I've known them since middle school, and then actually three of my former bandmates, another friend from high school, and then our homie John, who we went to art center with. I drove us all up to Vegas, and it was so freaking fun. Not only because the show was amazing and the museum was awesome, but like Chewy gave us an excuse to just chop it up and talk about music for like 5 hours both ways from Vegas to LA, LA to Vegas or whatever. But the show was incredible. Him and his wife Calicia did like such an amazing job. They were working hard. They were just like they framed everything themselves. They cut all these different prints to size and um, yeah, the breadth of work from Chewy was insane, and it felt so good to see it in the context of the punk rock museum, which I hadn't been to. One of my friends who went there, Keith, he actually made the music for this, helped make the music for this podcast, but he had been before and he hyped it up a lot, but it lived up to everything he said. It was so cool, super well organized. You expect punks to just like not, I don't know. There it's just funny. There's funny moments too where there's like, could you guys keep it down, or could you follow X, Y, and Z rules, which is so funny from like a bunch of the person telling me this had a nose ring and a mohawk and like leather studded pants and shit. So it's just funny that they're telling us to follow all these rules. But the show was sick. Like Chewy did such an amazing job, and to see it all in one place was really magical. So I thought it was so awesome. If you get a chance, if anyone has the time, go see it while it's up. It's worth the trip. The museum too is really sick.
Yeah, I saw some of his prep photos he was
Crazy.
posting on Instagram. There were so many pieces. I don't know like how he did it.
Yeah,
Like
it's
it
insane.
was just so much work. It looked like there was so much work to do.
It really puts into perspective like the amount of artists he's seen and interacted with, like people from Dimitri Martin, comedians like that, to like Weezer and Ice Cube, and all those hardcore bands we talked about. So cool, and to see the evolution of, there he had some earlier stuff, and then he had more like really fleshed out paintings and album artwork and stuff like that. He also had like a glass case of his sketchbooks, which was really sick. But yeah, huge congrats to Chewy. Such an accomplishment.
Yeah, congrats, Chewy. We're so happy for you.
Yeah.
All right. Do you want to answer some questions?
We got a question.
We got a
Someone
question.
wrote in,
I wonder who.
and it was our buddy John.
Definitely not. Definitely not someone we know, right?
No, not someone that was in the car with me up to Chewy's show that told me all about his love for big, um, real big fish. I forgot the name of the band, but yeah, real big fish. Voodoo, Glow Skulls, fuck, like all these ska bands he's super into. But yeah, we love you, John. Thank you for actually writing in. And he did write a lot, so like we're gonna spread it out over the next few episodes to answer.
All very, very thoughtful questions too, John.
Yeah, damn, John, you should. We need a third host on the show. God damn.
John asked, "What is your routine/practice? Are you strict with it, or does it change every day?"
You want me to take this one first?
Sure.
So my on an ideal day, I wake up at. Actually, my practice has changed a little bit because me and my wife Mo got a puppy. So
Oh, right.
yeah, Marcus. His name is Marcus. I'm not just saying a name. So I wake up around hopefully like 7 or 6:30. First thing I do, brush my teeth, all that. Then I take the dog out for a walk. Hopefully, I don't need to clean up piss and shit in the living room because he's a puppy. um, and then come back. Um, I will I'll play some basketball or I'll go to the skate park. And if the weather's bad, I'll just do some yoga. And then 9 a.m. I will check emails. But yeah, just straight to work, whatever it is. Currently, it's a graphic novel, and I'm actually an in-house artist for a company called Tamieto. Um, that's sort of another new thing. And then I take a lunch break at noon, maybe take a walk, take the dog out, and then work till 5 p.m., then dinner. And I try to call it, like, I try not to work after dinner. So that's pretty much my day. And then just hang out or go see friends or work on a podcast I'm doing with Sally Deng.
That's so funny because that's exactly my routine as well.
Your dog Marcus, too?
Yeah, I go skating in the morning as well, and
Is it
then
really, though? Like,
yeah.
time wise, it's like 9, then noon, then dinner?
Mm, I would say that it used to be more strict with how I approach like my career or slash job. I mean, I have like certain things that I try to stick to. Like, I'll wake up around 7:30, but then if I feel extra groggy, I'll just let myself, get in that extra half hour or hour sleep.
Nice.
Just, if I'm not having like a crazy deadline.
Yeah.
But yeah, usually it's changed over the years, but now since I'm working from home, it's just I don't have to deal with LA traffic, so
Mm-hmm.
I'm not as big of a rush in the
Oh,
morning.
yeah,
But
you used to be in
yeah,
a studio before.
I used to rent studio space with friends and whatnot. But yeah, I think I am like you, where I check emails in the beginning because it's like sometimes it's a hassle, but it's also just my brain's not completely awake, and then just try to get whatever needs to be done.
Yeah.
Honestly,
Yeah.
like I try not to be too strict with certain things, and like if they're like I used to be really uh like mad at myself if I'm not quote unquote productive,
Mm-hmm.
whether that is with an assignment or with just like self like initiated projects. But now I don't know. I'm getting older. I'm just like just just do whatever.
That's a good
Just do
attitude to have.
whatever. Just do whatever. Um
Dude, sometimes I'm like, if I don't start at 9, this day is fucked. It's ruined, but I've gotten to a point where I'm like, if there's other things that come in to interrupt the day, if I need to help family or if I need to take someone to the airport or if I need to take the dog out, like you said, you just sort of roll with it and you get done what
yeah,
you get done.
you have to be flexible. Like I mean that I think that's the whole reason why like at least that's the pros or like the benefit of being a freelancer, right? Is
Hmm.
that you can just like kind of adapt your schedule to certain needs, and
Yeah.
whatever comes up, it comes up.
It's hard not to
But
beat yourself up, though.
yeah, I mean, I say all this stuff, but then I'll still like I don't know, do as I say, not as I do.
So
Don't
second
listen
second
to
second
what.
part, are you strict with it or does it change? I guess we just answered that. Like
Yeah,
we just keep it flexible.
yeah,
Depends
yeah.
on depends on the project, right? Like if you're
Depends on
in
the
the thick of it.
project. And the thing is, I've kind of stopped thinking of it as only like a work schedule or like part, like, I just kind of combine it as with like a life schedule now.
Hmm. That's tough.
Like,
That's tough.
I'm,
Lines get blurred there.
well, okay, I'm not saying I'm the healthiest. I have the healthiest schedule, but I mean, there's certain things like, I'm pretty strict on myself with trying to stick to, exercise, right? And stopping at a certain time, like actually eating and resting up. But part of it is also like my body just doesn't want, like, it's letting me know, like, you're not 18 anymore. And I mean, I'm not saying I'm like, deteriorating, but it is that like when like I just can't past like 9 p.m. Like I hardly tried, like I've hardly had to work or let myself work past 9 p.m. now. Not because I'm that good at balancing like life and work, but it's because I've found that like the next morning, anything I make after like a certain time is just complete crap,
Yeah,
and I just end up redoing it
it's
anyway.
a waste of time. I mean, if you work,
Yeah,
if you're sort of treading water, and then you're burning yourself out, and then the next day's kind of ruined a little bit. You
yeah.
gotta rest.
You gotta rest,
All right, number
sleep.
number two. What's the most
Yes.
meaningful part slash habit of your day?
Meaningful. What does that mean? What does meaningful mean to you?
Important, significant. Well, I mean, I thought about this question because I thought it was a little difficult to answer. Um, and the answer I came up with was especially in light of recent events that I was telling you about in my personal life, and hearing news of people passing away too young. But I think the most meaningful part of my day is waking up and like having another chance to do it all over again. I think that regardless of a career as an illustrator or just being alive as a human, waking up and like being able to breathe and all the simple things that we can do, walk and stuff, like all these things we take for granted, like those are pretty meaningful to me. Very kind of cliche answer, but that's what I thought of when I saw this question.
No, that's a great answer. So, like, I'm not even gonna answer with my feelings because there's no point. I think your
You're
answer
like
would
lunch.
be
Lunch is my favorite part of the day.
no lie. I didn't even really consider the question until just now, and like the no filter answer that popped in my head was like my nap time.
Yeah,
Like,
hey, honestly, good
I
answer.
love taking a nap. But no, your answer is definitely much more thoughtful and you know something that people should take to heart
You can do both.
for
You
sure.
can wake up in the morning and then you can go to sleep in the middle of the day. um,
Hey man, like the greatest people,
took naps.
Napoleon took naps,
Einstein,
and
was he
he
a
conquered.
napper?
Yeah, he conquered entire France, right?
Hey,
So,
great. Um,
all right,
yeah. What's the last one, Sally?
all right. So, how do you celebrate your wins, and how do you handle your losses?
Um, it's interesting as like a, I don't know, maybe I can't even generalize as an illustrator, but just I guess for myself, when there is a win, I will usually tell tell a very small amount of people. Like I'll call Sally. I'll talk to my wife, Mo, my family. I don't really, I don't blast it on social media or anything. There are people who in my life that understand how meaningful certain victories are, I guess, if you want to frame it that way. Certain accomplishments are in my life that, yeah, I just share it with them, and like that's their reaction is enough for me to be like validated. But my losses, same thing. Share with people, and then I don't know. I try not, depending on what that means. I don't take it too personally if something goes wrong. I mean, I just had a this is a minor loss, but like I worked on this New Yorker illustration and it got killed, and I was sort of like working really hard on it for like a couple days straight, and that was a bummer. But it's also like that's out of my control. It's also not. It's out of my art director's control. It just happened. So sort of just let losses roll off your back a little bit.
Yeah, I think it's very important to define what is a win and what is a loss,
Yeah,
and it's like I've honestly never really categorized it like that. I saw it's obviously things like that with like having jobs killed or having or struggling to get jobs or getting paid. That's all part of the game, and that's like really, really demoralizing, and
Mm-hmm.
just like your confidence can really take a hit.
Yeah.
But I I don't know. I don't. It's tough for me to answer that question because I don't know if I have the right approach to it. Where like I don't really celebrate, you know, the quote unquote wins. So like the losses aren't as, I don't see it as losses. It's just all the entire thing,
Mm-hmm.
if that makes
You're like
sense.
Alex Honnold. You're never one extreme or the other. You need to be at a perfect homeostasis so you don't fall off El
Yeah, I
Capitan.
mean, yeah, I don't, want to plunge to my death because I think like I do. I'm an illustrator because I love art. I love like looking at art and the painting, but I'm an illustrator because I like the process of making the art.
Mm-hmm.
If I didn't like painting and if I didn't like drawing, if I wouldn't be doing this. So like my wins are when I'm making the piece,
Yeah, it's a more big picture.
you
It's
know?
not. It's not like part and parcel with like one assignment. You're kind of like
Yeah.
looking at it as like I get to do this for a living. Like that's already enough.
I yeah. I mean it's like I mean I don't know cuz I can also, hear like a younger me who's just trying to get into illustration going, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." Like come on, like that's but cuz there are like really painful moments and shitty moments. But it's like when my friend or our friend Chris, uh when we because I go backpacking with him, and in the past he's mentioned this thing about like people who go backpacking, like, or who enjoy going backpacking and you know walking out there in the wilderness, like you have to enjoy the suck
Mm-hmm.
as well. Like there's that amazing part of that trip where you're like on the summit and looking out at the amazing view, but half of that trip is also like you just like being grumpy, being tired, and like you're in the sun, you're hungry, like you're also sick of the food you brought with you, and it's like shitty. Like that's the sucky part, but you have to love it too. So I don't know. I Just getting long winded,
You
but
don't get the sunshine without the rain, baby.
there you go.
But I hear what you're saying. Where it's like,
Whatever Dolly Parton says, keep listening.
but yeah, it's you have to enjoy the process, and I guess, um, yeah, those. I mean, when you look back at those trips, you really appreciate even the crappy parts of it, right? Like you appreciate the struggle of getting to that summit. I'm speculating.
Yeah.
I've never hiked before. Hiked long, or backpacked, excuse me.
I mean, like yeah. I mean, I guess even with backpacking, with illustrating career or the career, the most important thing is that you need someone to go through a journey with you, right?
Mm,
Or at least I did, or I still do, right? So I can like bitch and complain all the crappy part to my friends and
yeah,
the
totally.
people who will let me vent.
Yeah, I celebrate my wins and my losses with John Cody Clark, which is true. I mean, I share with John, and it's exactly what you said. Like, um, yeah, we do this with other people, so I guess that's the answer.
Yeah.
Wins and losses, you share them with your friends. Thanks, John. God dang, those were good questions.
Ooh, that went a little bit deeper than I
Yeah,
thought.
yeah, definitely, and we have a lot more where that came from. So in light of John's amazing contribution, we also want to open this pod up to you. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, guest suggestions, art direct, do we have to say this every time?
I didn't think you would, honestly. But if you enjoy it, yeah, say it again.
Spam or scams, email us at plainairpodcast@gmail.com, and we'll try to answer you at the end of each episode like we just did. Um, your turn, Sally.
yeah, we'll be on the lookout. And as always, thanks to the PA boys, Fernando Nunez, Keith Hernandez, and John Lee for the awesome music, and my little brother, Vincent Deng, as our reliable audio engineer, and also just like and someone who we go to when we have technical issues.
Like tonight, because now we're both recording with our freaking iPhone headphones or whatever.
Yeah, I'm borrowing his laptop.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we
thanks, Vincent.
we kind of yeah. Anywho, thanks, Vincent. This episode is brought to you by us. Corporate sponsors can choke. You're destroying the planet for profit, and we want you to leave us alone. Unless you have a lot of money, then we'll sell out like everyone else.
Not me. I'll sell
Bye.
I don't need a lot of money. No, let me get it out. All right, bye.